Polar equations are six weeks midterm. First problem says find the rectangular coordinates of the point with the given polar coordinates. So these are polar. And remember the thing about polar, when we say polar, we're talking about r and theta. So we have r, which stands for radius. It can also be the same thing as like a hypotenuse, h, or magnitude if we were talking vectors. And it says to find rectangular coordinates. Now, if you think about a rectangle has two dimensions. We have a length and the width. Now, normally we call these L and W, but for pre-cal purposes, when we think about this, this is going horizontally, so we would call this an X and a Y. So when it says rectangular coordinates, it's saying find the X and Y that would represent this radius and this angle. Now we've learned how we do this as well. There's an old saying, psi y cos x, tangent is y over x. And so we said that sine was y over h, or in this case r, and cos was x over r. If I wanted to get the y by itself, what I would need to do is multiply both sides of this equation by r. And just the same, if I want to get x by itself, I would multiply both sides by r. And here's how we come up with the formula to find these points. We'd say that our x will equal our cos, and our y value will equal our sine. And so I just need to plug in the points, and I can go to the calculator. So it'd be -6 times the sine of 3 pi over 2. I'm going to write it this way. It's the same thing as 3/2 pi. And my x will be -6 cosine of 3 pi over 2. So this would be my y, this would be my x. I could type those in the calculator, and I should get the answer. We could also do hand trick. If you think about this, anything pi over 2, anything with a denominator 2, is your thumb. And so you'd be bending your thumb. But in case you don't know how to do hand trick, you could go to your calculator, and you would just type it in. -6 sine, and it was 3 pi over 2. So I'm going to do fraction 3. Well, let's try this again with the calculator. 3 pi over 2. Now, if I leave it like this and press enter, I very likely might get the wrong answer because we're not telling the calculator what type. If this is radians or degrees, we're not telling them the type of units. But if I go over here, it says I'm in degree mode, which this is a radian. So here's what I need to do. Next to the pi, I'm going to press the R button for, not this R, but I'm going to go here and press this R next to the degree button, which tells the calculator this is actually a radians. So now when I press enter, it gives me the value. It says the y value should be 6, and if I did this again, but change from a sine to a cosine, I'll get the x value. So I'm going to do the same thing again. The cosine is 0. So I have an x value, which equals 0, and the y value was 6. Let me make sure I got those right. Yes, I did. And so as I look up here, I need x first, then y, so b 0, 6, which looks like D is the correct answer here. And so let's do the same thing now on number 2. So number 2, we now know that x is going to be 7 cosine of pi, and y would be 7 sine of pi. So I'll go to our calculator and just type those in. Again, we can use hand trick. Anything without a denominator is the pinky, so you'd be bending your pinky and flipping your hand over. But if you did not want to do that, you could go 7 cosine of pi. And again, I'm in radians. So since I'm in radians, what I need to do is press the R button right there. And so I get the value -7, and then I'll do the same thing again. But this time I'll change this to a sine. And so I get 0. So it's -7, 0. X equals -7, y equals 0. So my point would be -7, 0. Right here, B. And now finally, let's try the last one. This time they give us a degree. So we'll say that x is going to equal -3 cosine of 180 degrees, and y will equal -3 sine of 180 degrees. So now the reference angle is 0. So if you want to use your hand trick, you'd be using your pinky again. We'll type this in the calculator and see what we get. So this time I'll have -3 oops, -3 cosine of 180 degrees. And the degree button's down here with the pi. And then, so the value is 3. And now I do the sine, the same thing, and 0. So I get x equals 3, y equals 0. Which means my point will be 3, 0. That looks like the answer is D. So that's that way of using the calculator. Now, what if you don't remember the psi y, cos x, tangent is y over x? Is there any other way of doing this? Yes, there is. We can type this in with brackets and convert all of these. So let's do that real quick. We'll go back. And the way we do it with brackets is, let me just clear this all out. Is I'm going to do control parenthesis, and now we'll type in the values. It was -6, comma, and since these are in polar, you have to tell the calculator that by doing control book, and you press the angle button, and then you say control book of 3 halves, and then they have the pi over here like this. Don't forget the radians button. There's 2 mistakes people do make frequently when they do this is they forget this degree symbol or they forget the R. Now that's in polar. You can go through menu, vectors, and choose convert to rectangular, or you can just press enter. The calculator will automatically convert things to rectangular. And we get 0.6. What was our original answer? 0.6. Let's try this one, 7 comma pi. So I'm basically doing the same thing. I'm going to go control parenthesis, which gives me the bracket, 7 comma pi. Since that's in radians, I'm going to go back and I'm going to press the radian button. So now I've chosen radians. Now this time I'm just going to press enter and show you that that will convert it. Actually, it did not convert it this time. Interesting. So I'm going to do this again, but this time I'll click. Oh, I know why. I forgot the angle. I made the mistake that I say you guys make all the time. I need to put in the angle button here. So control book, put an angle there. Now when I press enter, it should convert it. So it says -7.0. That's what we had. And now finally, let's go -3 and 180 degrees. So we have control parentheses -3 comma. This time I'll press the go control book. There's the angle button. And I'll say 180 degrees. And it looks like my negative did not work for me. A lot of things in my calculator messing up. Let's go back here. This was -3. Let's try that. There we go. Now I press enter. It says 3.0. And that is in fact what we got.